Have you ever sat alone in a quiet room, the silence wrapping around you, and wondered why, despite all you've done, all the years you've lived, there's still this aching feeling inside? It's not loud, it doesn't shout, but it's there, like a quiet weight pressing against your chest or a tired sigh. That lives somewhere deep in your soul. And maybe you've told yourself, this is just part of getting older. Maybe you've pushed it aside, distracted yourself with a walk, a favorite TV show, or even told yourself to be grateful because really, you do have a lot to be thankful for. But still, that feeling lingers. You see, pain doesn't always come in the form of a physical wound or a loud heartbreak. Sometimes it's subtle, invisible to everyone else. It's the kind that follows you quietly through your days, even when everything on the outside seems perfectly fine. And here's something most people never say out loud. The older we get, the quieter our pain becomes. But that doesn't mean it disappears. In fact, the silence can make it harder, because we've learned how to pretend, how to smile for the grandkids, how to nod through conversations, how to be strong. We've been strong for so long, haven't we? But what if I told you that this pain, this persistent, quiet suffering, isn't here to punish you? What if it's here to teach you something? What if it's not your enemy, but your guide? Let's talk about that. Let's really talk about why we hurt, even when we don't know why. Because it's not too late. You're not too old, and you're not broken. There's something powerful waiting on the other side of your pain. But to get there, we have to start at the beginning. Most people think their suffering comes from the outside, from other people, from situations, from loss, from regret. And yes, all of that matters. Life throws curveballs. People leave. Health changes. We carry disappointments, like invisible bags we never unpack. But the deepest kind of suffering? The kind that lingers no matter how many problems you solve or how much you try to stay positive. That suffering comes from within, from the parts of you that you've ignored, forgotten, silenced. And let me tell you something important. You didn't do that because you're weak. You did it because you had to survive. From the moment we're born, we're taught how to behave. Be polite. Don't cry. Don't complain. Don't make things harder for others. Over time, you learn to tuck parts of yourself away. The anger you didn't know how to express, the sadness you didn't have permission to show, the dreams you gave up on because responsibility came first. And bit by bit, year by year, you drift away from the person you truly are. You become what's expected. You play the roles, parent, spouse, caretaker, provider, and you do it well. But somewhere along the way, maybe you stopped asking, what about me? The soul knows when it's being ignored. It knows when you're smiling on the outside, but screaming quietly on the inside. That's where the real suffering begins, not from what the world does to you, but from what you've had to leave behind in yourself, just to make it through. The truth is, most people are walking around carrying wounds they've never named, emotional bruises that never had time to heal. And after 60, those wounds don't go away. If anything, they whisper louder, especially when life slows down and the distractions start to fade. But here's where things start to shift. That pain you feel, it's not just a burden, it's a message. It's trying to tell you something important. It's not asking you to fight it, it's asking you to listen. Now, I know that sounds strange. You've probably spent a lifetime trying to get rid of pain. Who wouldn't? We've been taught to run from it, to cover it up with medication, with busyness, with smiles. But the kind of pain I'm talking about, the pain of disconnecting from your true self, it doesn't go away just because you want it to. It only goes away when you see it, hear it, and understand it. That heaviness in your chest, that feeling of emptiness that creeps in at night when the house is quiet, That's not a flaw. That's not failure. That's a signal. It's your inner self knocking, saying, "Please don't forget me." See, suffering isn't meant to torture us. It's meant to wake us up. It's the soul's way of saying, "You're out of alignment. You've forgotten who you are." And it's never too late to remember. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to keep playing roles that don't fit anymore. And no, this doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities or becoming someone else. It means coming home to yourself. It means making room. Even now, especially now, for your own truth. Because the second you start to listen to your pain, something changes. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts when you're doing something that goes against your inner truth? A tight chest when you say yes to something you don't want? A headache that won't go away when you're holding in resentment? A sudden wave of exhaustion when you're pretending to be okay? That's not coincidence. That's wisdom. Your body is trying to speak the truth. Your mind is too afraid to say. So the real work, the real freedom, starts when you stop running and start listening. When you begin to ask, "What have I buried? What part of me have I ignored for too long?" It might be a dream you left behind, a loss you never grieved, a truth you've been too afraid to speak out loud. Whatever it is, it's not too late. You've lived a full life. You've carried others. You've shown strength in more ways than most will ever know. But now, maybe it's time to turn that strength inward, to sit with yourself, not to fix or judge, but to understand, to finally give yourself the compassion you've given everyone else. You don't need to become someone new. You don't need to chase happiness like it's some destination far off in the distance. Everything you need is already inside you. It always has been. But to reach it, to truly free yourself from the quiet suffering, you have to take one brave step. You have to stop pretending everything's fine and start listening to the parts of you that haven't had a voice in years. You'll be amazed at what happens when you do. You'll feel lighter, clearer. And not because life suddenly gets perfect, but because you stop fighting yourself. That's the real secret. That's how the suffering ends. Not by eliminating pain, but by learning to understand it. And once you begin that process, even just a little, you start to feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from silence or stillness, but the kind that comes from truth. From knowing that you're finally honoring the life inside you. That you're no longer abandoning yourself just to keep the world comfortable. You start to see your pain for what it really is, a teacher, a guide, a compass pointing you home. And that's where we'll keep going together. You might be wondering, okay, I understand that pain has a purpose, but what am I actually supposed to do with it? That's a fair question, because once you stop running, once you sit with your pain and truly look at it, things can start to feel messy, maybe even overwhelming. All the emotions you've tucked away start to rise to the surface. Anger you thought was gone, grief you never fully felt, a sense of emptiness that's hard to explain. It's like opening a drawer you've kept locked for decades. And the first instinct is often to slam it shut again. But this is the moment everything can begin to change. See, most people live their entire lives reacting to pain instead of learning from it. They treat anxiety like an enemy. They hide sadness, ignore guilt, and call anger a weakness. But what if none of those feelings were mistakes? What if they were all clues, breadcrumbs pointing you towards something important? Think about the times in your life when you were most upset. Was it really the other person who caused your pain? Or was it something deeper? A sense of being unseen? A fear of being unworthy? That sharp emotional sting? It isn't random. It's the voice of something inside you that hasn't had a chance to be heard. And that voice, as painful as it might sound, is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to protect you, to bring you back to yourself. But that requires honesty. The kind of honesty that's not always easy. Because to heal, you don't just need to look at the pain others caused you. You also need to look at the ways you've abandoned yourself, the times you stayed silent when you wanted to speak, the choices you made just to feel accepted, the things you pretended not to care about, even though they mattered deeply. That's the real work. Not changing who you are, but unearthing the parts of you that got buried along the way. And yes, it takes courage, a lot of it. But you've faced storms before. You've lived through decades of ups and downs, heartbreaks and victories. That strength, it didn't disappear. It's still in you. And now's the time to use it in a different way. Not to push through or carry others, but to face the parts of yourself that have been waiting. Let me give you something practical. If you're wondering how to start listening to your inner truth, start by paying attention to how your body reacts throughout the day. You don't need a journal or a therapist just yet. Just start noticing. Does your chest tighten when you agree to something you don't want to do? Does your stomach sink when you hear a certain name or think about a certain time in your life? These aren't random feelings, they're signals. And when you notice them, ask gently, what am I really feeling right now? What part of me is trying to speak? This kind of awareness, it's not loud. It doesn't come in one big lightning bolt. It's quiet, subtle. But the more you practice it, the more you begin to see a pattern. And that pattern is the map leading you back home. Another powerful way to explore your inner world is writing, not writing to perform. Not writing to be neat or polished. Writing like a confession, just you and the page. Write what hurts. Write what you're afraid to say out loud. Write the things you've told no one. Because when you do, something incredible happens. The truth loses its power to control you. You take the emotions out of the shadows and bring them into the light. And once you see them clearly, they stop being scary. They just are a part of your story, not your whole identity. You can also reflect on recurring patterns in your life. Have you noticed you always feel drained after spending time with certain people? That you constantly put others' needs before your own, even when it leaves you exhausted? That you're afraid to disappoint someone, even if it means disappointing yourself? These patterns aren't just habits, they're signs. And each one tells a story about who you had to become to survive. But survival is no longer the goal. You've already survived. Now it's time to live. Living, really living, means stepping out of automatic mode. It means choosing each day to be present with yourself, to notice when you're slipping into old patterns, to forgive yourself for not knowing better back then, and to gently choose a new way now that you do know. That's what this journey is about. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about reclaiming who you've always been underneath the roles, the masks, the pressure to be everything for everyone. There's a beautiful truth here. The parts of you that feel broken aren't broken at all. They're just parts of you that haven't been loved enough, parts that haven't been seen. And once you start offering them your attention, not judgment, not criticism, just honest attention, they begin to heal. You'll start to notice small shifts. You'll say no without guilt. You'll rest when you're tired without calling yourself lazy. You'll express how you feel without apologizing for it. And that peace you've been chasing, it starts to find you. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because you do. You stop needing the pain to go away because you're no longer afraid of it. You stop fighting yourself. You make room for all of you. The strong and the soft, the certain and the uncertain, the joyful and the grieving, and for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, you start to feel whole. It's a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and standing gently, firmly in that truth. And here's what I want you to remember. No matter how long you've carried your pain, no matter how many years You've lived without naming it. It is never too late to begin. Never. You are not too far gone. You are not too damaged. You are not too old. You are right on time. Something happens, quietly, almost like a whisper, when you begin to look at your pain, not as something to fear, but as something to understand. You stop bracing yourself. You stop shrinking. You stop tiptoeing through your own life, waiting for things to feel better, without ever asking what better really means. And for perhaps the first time, you feel a shift inside. Not a burst of happiness, not a miracle, but something deeper. You feel yourself beginning to come home. You've spent a long time trying to fix your life by fixing everything around you. Your relationships, your routines, your health, even your past, and all of that matters. But now you're seeing something deeper. That true healing doesn't come from the outside in. It comes from the inside out. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming someone real, someone whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not about getting rid of sadness or erasing the years that hurt. It's not about becoming endlessly positive. Wholeness means making peace with every part of yourself. The part that doubts, the part that loves deeply, the part that gets overwhelmed, the part that has been through so much and still shows up. You stop fighting your story. You start honoring it. And that changes everything. You begin to live with a kind of quiet confidence. Not the kind that needs applause, but the kind that knows. I belong to myself now. I don't need to perform. I don't need to chase validation. I can rest in who I am, fully, without shame. It's not easy, I know. You'll still have moments when old thoughts come creeping back. Maybe you'll wake up one morning and the old voice will whisper, "You're not enough." But now, instead of believing it, you'll pause. You'll take a breath and you'll say, "That voice is old. It's tired. It's not mine anymore." That's the power of living consciously. It's not about being happy all the time. It's about being aware. Aware of your choices. Aware of your patterns. Aware of how you speak to yourself and how you show up in your life. You stop sleepwalking through your days. You begin to live awake. And when you do that, when you truly live awake, you begin to make different decisions, not because you should, but because you want to, because you've seen the cost of abandoning yourself, and you're not willing to pay that price anymore. You'll notice it in the small things first. The way you take your time in the morning instead of rushing. The way you breathe more deeply. The way you pause before saying yes to something that doesn't feel right. The way you hold your own gaze in the mirror and feel at peace. You'll start to speak more gently to yourself. And when that old inner critic pops up, the one that tells you you're too much or not enough, you won't push it away. You'll simply nod and say, "I hear you, but I don't believe you anymore." That's growth. That's healing. That's freedom. It doesn't matter if you're 60, 70, or beyond. You are not too late to feel that shift. You are not too late to change your relationship with yourself. And you are not too late to begin living your life. Not on autopilot, not out of guilt or fear, but with purpose, with awareness, with love. You may have spent years caring for others, putting yourself last, pushing through discomfort, because that's what was expected of you. You've been strong, you've endured, and now maybe it's time to use that same strength in a new way, not to carry the weight of others, but to hold yourself with kindness. You don't need permission, you don't need approval, you just need to choose. And I'll tell you something beautiful that happens when you do. When you stop hiding parts of yourself, you stop hiding from life. You begin to laugh more easily. You find beauty in things you used to rush past. You become a magnet for authenticity because people feel safe around someone who is at peace with themselves. You may even inspire others without even trying. A friend might notice that you seem lighter. A family member might sense something different in how you listen. You won't need to preach or convince anyone. Your presence will speak for itself. And maybe the biggest change of all? You'll stop waiting for life to be perfect before you allow yourself to enjoy it. You'll stop saying, "I'll feel better when," and start realizing you can feel better now. Not because everything is easy, but because you've stopped resisting what is true. This isn't about giving up, it's about surrendering, not to pain, but to peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop running, when you stop hiding, when you finally say, "I accept who I am as I am." You'll still have work to do. That's part of life. But it won't feel like a constant battle anymore. It will feel like walking beside yourself instead of against yourself, and that makes all the difference. You're not here just to survive. You're here to live, fully. And the pain that once felt like your enemy, you'll look back and see it for what it was: a teacher, a messenger, a guide leading you back to the one place you always belonged, yourself. And now that you're here, there's just one more question left. What will you do with your life now that you've remembered who you really are? You don't have to have all the answers today. But if this conversation touched something in you, if it stirred a truth that's been quietly waiting, you're not alone. There's a whole community of people just like you walking this same path. People who are done pretending, done running, done suffering. If something in this message spoke to you, leave a comment below. Share what resonated. Let others know they're not alone. Because the more we speak our truth, the more we give others permission to do the same. And if you're ready to keep walking this journey, to stay awake, stay strong, and live fully, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. We've got so much more to explore together. Remember, healing doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means your life becomes yours. Here's to peace that lasts. Here's to truth that frees. Here's to living your best life at any age.